Holy buckets, here it is. It is in its brand new, beautiful binder. This is the Fan Clan Master Set of Temporal Forces. Look at how good this looks. Oh my goodness. This belongs to one of you. One of you gets to win this entire master set. And if you want to be the winner, here's what you have to do. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. So scroll down, hit that subscribe button if you are not already subscribed, and then leave a like and a comment on this video right up here. Now, don't do it right now. Wait till the end of this video, but go back, watch this video, leave a like and a comment on this video, and then boom, you're entered. Come back on April 5th, Friday, April 5th. That's when we are going to announce the winner at the beginning of the video. Good luck. Woo! Happy Tuesday, Fan Clan. What is going on? My name is Danny Phantom. Hope you guys are all doing well. Hope you're having a way better start to the week than me. It's raining out and it's going to turn to snow. And we're going to get like 6 inches of snow over the next couple of days, which makes sense. Like, it's April. Like, why not? Like, the Brewers are playing at home today, so might as well snow. But we digress. We move on because Pokemon is fun. That's a good transition. And there's been a lot going on in the Pokemon market. Obviously, we spent a lot of time talking about Temporal Forces. We're going to take a break from Temporal Forces for a couple of videos, and we're going to go back to Paradox Rift. This week of videos is going to be all very interesting data. It's all going to be very interesting because there's a lot of cards that are moving in the market that you really wouldn't expect, and it's all because of one thing. It's all because of one thing, and that's competitive play. Competitive play plays such a huge factor on the market, and you really wouldn't think about it as a collector, and I had the backwards problem for a long time. I played competitively, and I did not even think about the collector market impacting cards or anything like that. I lived in my own bubble, right? Like my own bubble of competitive players. I was constantly talking to competitive players, constantly looking at the meta, constantly analyzing different deck strategies, and trying to theory different deck strategies. It was a lot of fun, but it was only half of the niche. It was only half of the hobby, and it wasn't any focus on really collecting. But as I started transitioning into more of a collector space and a business owner and things like that, now I can kind of see it from a perspective of both angles, which is a lot of fun, and it's really, really interesting to kind of try and dissect everything that's going on. But because rotation is hitting basically right now, this upcoming weekend, we have a giant international tournament that is taking place over in the UK. It's the European International Championships, and it's a completely new format. And basically what that means is cards that were legal for standard play are no longer going to be legal. Cards that you might have used from Fusion Strike, from Chilling Reign, from Evolving Skies, those are all out the window. You cannot use those in standard play anymore. Those move to expanded, and they don't really have expanded events, at least not officially sanctioned events. There might be some fun expanded or some GLC event, something like that, at your local league, or maybe at a regional event if you scrub out and you drop and you have to play, you play in day 2, but just in a fun side event or something like that. But there's nothing that's officially sanctioned really by Pokemon as far as a major event goes. They used to do it where like half of the regionals would be standard format, half of the regionals would be expanded format. They haven't done that since before the pandemic. Now that could change next year. That could change next season. We have no idea how the mind of Pokemon works. But with rotation happening, there's a lot of movement because people don't know what's good. People don't know what's going to be really good. You see a lot of movement from Lugia V. I've recorded a ton of shorts on it, so make sure you check out the shorts. Follow me on Instagram. I turn them into reels if you want to follow me on Instagram. That's a really bad plug. You can find me at danny.phantom. But lots of cards that you wouldn't necessarily expect to see massive growth, like Lugia V going from a $2 bulk ultra rare up to over $8, really just because of competitive play. Jet Energy, if you look at Jet Energy from Paldea Evolved, Jet Energy has moved up quite a bit from about $1.25, closer to that $4 mark right now for a Jet Energy. Cards like Iono, for example, have not been impacted really because they've been reprinted so much. But the cards that have not been reprinted a ton, like Iron Hands EX, for example, there's the transition we're looking for, has done extremely well. And we're going to look at Paradox Rift pull rate data, and we are going to associate a fun cost with opening up a booster box of Paradox Rift. Now, you should never open up, you should never, ever open up a booster box of any set expecting to turn a profit. It's just not, it's not smart. It is not financially smart. If you want to be completely degenerate and you want to just have a lot of fun and open up a box of whatever for funsies, go nuts. But you are going to lose money. That is expected. You might hit something really, really good. That might increase your profit margin, but you should never expect to hit something. We're going to look at Paradox Rift because there is one card in Paradox Rift that goes by the name of Iron Hands EX. And we've talked about this recently in some shorts that it's absolutely blown up because of how well it is expected to do in the competitive field. And that's all going to be answered this upcoming weekend. If Iron Hands does extremely well and Iron Hands wins EUIC, then it's probably going to stabilize right around $17, $18. If it doesn't do well and it just falls apart, that price point is just going to drop. It's going to fall like crazy because people are going to transition to something else that did do well. Maybe they'll move into Lugia V-Star, or maybe they'll look into something that really hasn't even been thought of yet. You never know what's going to happen. And every once in a while, somebody brings some crazy deck, and all of a sudden people are like, holy buckets, why did I play Iron Hands? This card is way better. But with the release of Temporal Forces and Iron Crown, we have seen Iron Hands EX just jump up like crazy. And I'm going to flip you guys around so we can look at exactly what I'm talking about. But what we've got here is we've got all the pull rate data of Paradox Rift. So that way you know approximately what your pull rates are going to look like with Paradox Rift. Now, we've already talked about this. However, what we did is we associated the market price, the selling price for these cards with each individual card. So like a Frostlass, for example, Frostlass EX is just a double rare. A regular art EX sells for $2. Now it sells for less than that, but a bulk, I believe if you sell cards individually, you can probably get $2 for an ultra rare. I mean, it's you're gonna have to pay shipping, you're gonna have to pay fees. It's probably not gonna end up being $2, but we're just gonna associate a $2 value with all the bulk cards. So you see, there's a lot of regular arts that sell for basically bulk pricing, but we're gonna associate a price with every single card, so that way we can determine based off of pull rate data the average expectation of how much you will pull in value out of your booster box of Paradox Rift. And then we'll look at the pricing structure of Paradox Rift and say, okay, well, how much should you expect to lose when it comes to opening Paradox Rift? And if you want to break even, what should your target price be when it comes to buying booster packs of Paradox Rift? So we're going to start out looking at the double rares right here. And you can see I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on a lot of these double rares because a lot of them are just bulk pricing all the way down to the Iron Hands EX. Now, this card has absolutely exploded in price. I pulled this data together a few days ago. So that was when Iron Hands EX was at $22.21 on TCG Player. That's what it was selling for. Now it has dropped a little bit. It's still selling for about $18 a piece, but it has lost about $4 of value already. So we'll see what happens this upcoming weekend once EUIC happens. Maybe it'll go up a little bit, maybe it'll go down a bit, but it all depends on how the performance is. If it takes 8 spots in top 8 or 4 spots in top 8, then it's going to be a very, very good deck moving forward. And a lot of people are going to want to have Iron Hands EX, at least in their back pocket, just in case they decide to play it at an upcoming event. So $22.21 is absolutely insane. That is an extremely high price point. This is probably the highest price point we have seen for a regular art ultra rare throughout Scarlet and Violet. And this is what goes to show you that the competitive scene plays a huge impact on the market. It does. It just does. You have cards like Charizard EX from Obsidian Flames, which was huge. It was a really big card in competitive play. But even after that set came out, it was about $14, $15. So it was much, much cheaper than the Iron Hands EX, which has been out for several months now. Obviously not a super old set, but it's been out for a little bit of a while. We saw cards like Raikou V jump up to $11, $12. We saw cards like Squawkabilly EX before that got reprinted jump up to about $5, $6. But even like the Charizard EX, that fell quite a bit after we got reprints all over the place in collection tins and boxes and Paldean Fates. Charizard EX was just printed like crazy. Iron Hands EX has not been the victim of a bunch of reprints yet. So because of that, there's only one place to get it, and that's Temporal Force or Paradox Rift booster boxes or booster packs. So that's why the price continues to be high, because the supply is not really meeting the demand for this specific card. So $22.21 is what that is selling for. You've got Roaring Moon EX, which is another strong card in the competitive format, currently selling for $6.05. Now, this card did get reprinted in the form of a collection box, which is why it keeps it a little bit cheaper. Roaring Moon has done really well on the back half of this rotation here. However, with rotation hitting, we don't know exactly how it's going to perform in the near future. And the only other non-bulk card that we have in Paradox Rift Rift is Golden Go EX, and the jury is still completely out on Golden Go EX. There's a lot of people who love this card in competitive play, and there's a lot of people who think that it's completely mid, and because of that, it has dropped quite a bit over the past few weeks. It was hovering around $6-7, now it's lost about half of its value, down to about $3.88. If we go over by the full arts, the ultra rares, again, a lot of cards that are selling for bulk rates, but some that are doing a little bit better. You have the Armoroge EX full art selling for $3.35. You have the Garchomp EX, the full art Terra, the funny hat one, selling for $5.41. That's actually not too bad for a funny hat Pokemon, because a lot of those funny hat Pokemon, well, you look at Temporal Forces, for example, the Ferrogiraffe and the other one, the Wugtrio, neither of those are selling for above, they're like $1.30. They're super cheap. So having a Garchomp EX, that just goes to show you a really popular Pokemon like Garchomp can make sure that even with the funny hats, it has a decent price point. Then you've got the Serena selling for $3.50, the Golisopod, the Tapu Koko, basically bulk. But then you've got the Iron Hands again. This is just the full art variant. So this is not even the special illustration rare. $27.19. It's been trending in the upward direction, continuing to trend upward. As that regular art creeps closer and closer, it starts pushing ahead, those full art variants, the special illustration rares, because players are like, well, I might as well just get 2 copies of the regular art and 2 copies of the full art, because that'll make it a lot easier to search. The full art's only a few dollars more than the regular art at this point. Might as well get that. Then you've got the Cofagrigus selling for $2. You've got the Iron Valiant full art, $5.31. Close to bulk for the Hoopa, close to bulk for the Toxtricity. The Sandy Shocks EX full art selling for $4.55. The Roaring Moon not doing too bad, again, because it's very competitive, $9.56. You've got a bulk Aegislash, the Golden Go, $7.65, which isn't bad. Altaria for $7.65. Mousehold and Bombardier, basically bulk pricing. The Larry is not doing too bad at $4.10, doing better than, or the Mela is at $4.10. The Larry is doing bad. It's at $2. Norman at $2. Parasol Lady at $5.02. Professor Seda actually not doing too bad. I'm going to get my ugly mug out of your way, but Professor Seda definitely expected to do well in competitive play moving forward. $11.30 for that double rare right there, or that ultra rare right there. Professor Turo selling for $3.93, and then basically bulk pricing or close to bulk pricing for the rest of them, with the exception of Tulip, which is selling for $3.97. If you look at the illustration rares, some of them actually hanging on fairly well, and we're just going to highlight some of them right here. We're not going to go through all of them, but $7.04 for the Magmy. You've got $5.74 for the Iron Moth. The Vanillish is selling for $6.61. The Plusle is selling for $7.87, and the Minin is selling for $7.10. You've got $5.73 on the Joltik, $5.84 on the Espathra. The Gimme Ghoul selling for $7.21. The big one continues to be the Groudon, selling for $22.74. I think this is really where you're going to see that Ghastly from Paradox or Temporal Forces kind of fall right around the $20-$25 mark. I don't think we're going to see another Magikarp situation on our hand like what we saw from Paldea Evolved. However, Ghastly obviously doing extremely well. You've got $10.32 on the Morpeko, $6.19 on the Evital, $10.49 on the Steelix, that Construction Zone Steelix, which is really cool. Other than that, only 3 cards out of all of the illustration rares, and there's a lot of illustration rares in Paradox Rift. Only 3 of them selling above double digits, which is actually really, really strong. If we go over by the special illustration rares, and there was a lot of them, especially compared to what we just looked at in Temporal Forces, compared to what we've seen in Obsidian Flames, there's a lot more in this set, so the variance is much, much wider, but for the most part, all of them relatively inexpensive, with the exception of Roaring Moon EX, which is selling for $54.86. But if you factor in how much this card was after release weekend. Remember, this card got bought out like crazy. Whether it was manipulation or not, it jumped up over $100. And people, luckily, a lot of people didn't FOMO. They waited, and now it's all the way down to $54.86. So even though it's more expensive of a special illustration rare, about half the price of where it was a few months ago when the set released after it got bought out. So $54.86, much, much cheaper, much easier to kind of spend close to that amount than it was over $100. But outside of that, you've got the Garchomp EX selling for $16.24. A lot of mid prices for the most part. Golisopod under $12. Tapu Koko's under $12. That Sunset Tapu Koko is absolutely beautiful. Iron Hands EX has gone up about $10. Remember, we talked about Iron Hands a few weeks ago when we looked over quantities available on TCG Player, and that was one of the cards we predicted was going to head in the upward direction, and it has up to $31.24. The Golden Go $26.34. This card has lost about $5 over the past couple of weeks. Beautiful looking card, the Golden Go, when you combine that with with the Gimme Ghoul. It makes that that picture, the combined arts, very, very cool. $20.79 on the Altaria, and then you've got a $10 on the Mela right there. $16.65 on the Parasol Lady. $20.12 on the Professor Seda, and everything else basically single-digit pricing. If you look at the hyper rares, $9.52 for the Garchomp. That's actually not too bad. Other than that, you've got $9.61 on the Roaring Moon and $9.82 on the Countercatcher. Countercatcher is another one that you kind of want to keep your eye on, especially the regular art variant. So just the uncommon version of Countercatcher, you might see it jump up a little bit more. It's already hovering right around that dollar mark. It might continue to climb depending on how well it does in competitive play. There's competitive game has grown a lot, and because of that, a lot more staples are needed. A lot more people need to get copies of these cards, and because of that, you're seeing some of these uncommon trainer cards start crossing that dollar path, which is really, really interesting. We're going to break everything down and kind of determine the average per rarity that you're going to pull per booster box. So we opened up 2,376 total packs, or 66 booster boxes, to get a good idea of rarity pull rates when it comes to Paradox Rift. And we determined that you pulled 5.41 double rares out of your booster box of Paradox Rift. Now, this could be, you could pull 5, you could pull 6, but the average is going to be $5.41, or 1 out of every 7 packs. The average value, now this is impacted by Iron Hands EX. If you don't pull an Iron Hands EX, it's going to be worse. It's going to be harder. You might pull a Roaring Moon, which will help out a little bit. You might pull that Golden Go EX, which will help out a little bit, but you need to pull one of those 3 in your 5 in order to get close to this average value. But that brings your average per booster box, just for that rarity, you're going to pull $17.90 worth of regular arts out of your Paradox Rift booster box. It'll be better if you pull the Iron Hands, but if you don't, it's going to get a little bit worse. Your average ultra rares, we get 2.38 per booster box. The average value of an ultra rare is $4.74. You have a lot above that price point, but you have a lot below that price point. That's why it's the average. $11.28 is the expected value that you're going to pull when it comes to ultra rares out of your Paradox Rift booster box. When it comes to illustration rares, your average per booster box is going to be $15.28. You should get close to 3 in your booster box. You should get 3, but you might get 2, but you should get 3. Your average value on those is $5.48. Obviously, if you pull the Groudon, if you pull the Steelix, it's going to be a little bit better, but if you don't pull those, it's hovering right around $4 or $5 for a lot of them. $5.48 the average value. That means $15.28 in total value out of just your illustration rares in your Paradox Rift booster box. Your special illustration rares, you're looking at $18.83. Remember, there's a lot of them in the upper teens, a lot of them in the mid-teens, but you do have a card like Iron Hands, which is 31. You do have Roaring Moon, which is 54. So that would impact your average a lot more, but your average is $18.83. You only pull 0.77, so you should get 1 between the special illustration and the hyper rare. This is not Temporal Forces. You get better pull rates in Paradox Rift, so you should get 1 special illustration rare, but if you don't, you should at least get a hyper rare, but 0.77 is your pull rate on this, 1 out of every 47 packs. That means on average, you should pull $14.55 worth of special illustration rares out of your booster box of Paradox Rift. And when it comes to hyper rares, you should pull half. 0.5 is the pull rate on hyper rares, those gold cards, 1 out of every 72 packs, or 1 out of every 2 boxes. That means $7.27 is your average value for the hyper rare category in Paradox Rift. So on average, your booster box should have $3.64 worth of value when it comes to those cards. All right, so if we look at average pulls per box, this is way better than what it was. So your average, I mean, it's not way better, but it is better than what it was. Your average value the last time we did this, a booster box, $59.67. It has actually gotten better. So it is better to open up Paradox Rift now than what it was a couple of months ago. You're looking at an average value of about $2 or $62.64 just when it comes to ultra rares, but your average ancillary pulls are also starting to go up. Remember, we talked about that Countercatcher, for example, starting to move in the upward direction a little bit. Earthen Vessel is another one that has crossed that dollar mark. It's hovering right around $1.50 right now. So if you pull a few of those in your Paradox Rift booster box, that helps that average value a little bit more. That means your average booster box value is about $77.64. So your fun cost of that, if you're looking at the average market price of this, the average market price right now of Temporal Forces or of Paradox Rift. You can find them around $90 if you buy them by the case. You can find them around $95 by themselves. So you're only going to be losing about $13, $15 somewhere in that area when you're opening up a booster box once you factor in all of your value. Now, obviously, if you're somebody who's like, I need to sell off these extras, or you trade off your extras and things like that when you pay shipping costs, that makes that average value get a little bit worse. But if you're just looking at opening up something for fun, your average value, your average expected loss when it comes to Paradox Rift is going to be a lot better on a set like this than what it would be on Scarlet and Violet base or on Obsidian Flames. This is much, much better at $77.64 of expected value. That breaks down to about $2.16 per pack. Now, it's going to be tough to find anything around that $2.16 mark, but if you can find something for about $2.30, somewhere around there, if you look hard enough, you break it down, maybe you buy a booster bundle case, or maybe you buy a booster box case, that helps out a lot. Way better than the $1.66 where we were at a few months ago when there really wasn't any ancillary value going on. Earthen Vessel was only about a 50-cent card. Counter Catcher was only about a 50-cent card. Now that competitive play is starting to ramp up again and rotation is starting to happen. Paradox Rift starting to get a little bit better when it comes to open. I don't think it's not as good as Temporal Forces. We'll talk about Temporal Forces probably Friday, but much better with Temporal Forces right now, and that's going to be impacted big time by this weekend. But the fun cost of opening up a set like Paradox Rift, really not that bad. You're only expected to lose about $15. Can you have $15 of fun opening up Paradox Rift? I mean, I know I can, but I just love Pokemon so much. I love you guys also, so thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me ramble. I'm really passionate about this stuff. It's so much fun to talk about, and having people just to talk with. It's like we're friends, and I really appreciate that. So thank you so much. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button down below. Leave a like, leave a comment. It goes a really long way for the algorithm. It really does. Sharing the channel, like, it just gets more eyes on it. So thank you so much for just hitting that like button. I really appreciate you guys. I'll talk to you again tomorrow. We'll have a stream. Until next time, peace.